On today's episode, we have Eric Santos. Eric is the VP of Sales at Vox Pop Me, a multi-million-dollar tech company. We unpacked a ton in this episode on why work-life balance is overrated in your 20s and 8 tricks and tips you need to know to be the most confident guy in the room. So make sure you tune in to today's episode. Now let the show begin. I'm a former athlete, small business owner, and serial entrepreneur. The goal of the podcast is to help entrepreneurs grow your network, scale your business, and improve your life. Each week, I'm going to highlight ordinary people in our communities who do extraordinary things. Hello, and welcome back to the Rip Off and Duplicate podcast. I am your host, Kalhiel Dillard. Today, I'm joined with us is Eric Santos. Eric is the VP of Sales at Vox Pop Me, former COO of Hubux, former CEO of Benchmark Intelligence, and founder of Creative Collect. He founded a nonprofit here in Fresno as well, Big Brother Boxing Gym. He's been featured in Yahoo, Business Insider, Ask Men, and News.com. So we're very fortunate to have Eric here on the show today, providing a lot of value for the audience. Thank you for being here, man.
No problem. Excited for this conversation.
Good. So this is actually Eric and I's first time meeting in person. Is here live on the podcast. We've always supported each other on social media, supported each other's role as entrepreneurs here locally, but just can never connect. But boy, am I excited to be here with him, connect with him finally in a setting like this. And it's really a big opportunity for the both of us. So thank you for being here, man.
No problem. My pleasure, man.
Awesome. So let's dive right into it, man. You have done a lot in the community of Fresno. Where are you from? Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Visalia, California. Moved here when I went to Fresno State a while back.
Okay, nice. What high school did you attend in Visalia?
Mount Whitney.
Okay, cool. Did you play sports or anything like that? Like, what did your life look like in high school?
I was mostly a skateboarder. I did soccer from like young kid to I think freshman in high school. Then I really got into skateboarding. I thought I'd actually maybe go pro one day. I mean, that was a pipe dream. I wasn't that great. But I was sponsored by a local board shop. So I did like compete in competitions, make skate videos. So that was really a big part of my youth and teens. And then I kind of quit around the time I started going to Fresno State.
What did you study at Fresno State?
I studied entrepreneurship.
Okay, and what does studying entrepreneurship look like? Because I know that's a question for a lot of young adults. Like, what did college look like for you, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I had a great college experience. I have mixed feelings about the entrepreneurship major if you're not going to be an entrepreneur. As you kind of don't become an expert in any one field. You're taking like 3 of each class, 3 management, like 2 finance, 2 marketing. So versus obviously if you choose a field like finance, marketing, you do more deep dives into that. So coming out of Fresno State, I didn't really learn like specifically one skill set, more how to start a company, which, pay dividends as that's what I did out of college and eventually worked for a company for a few years, and I was able to utilize those skills I learned. But again, it may not be for everyone because you're not going to come out with really crazy domain expertise in marketing or finance or management like you would if you chose a more traditional option.
What were some of the skills you learned in the entrepreneurship major at Fresno State?
A lot was really sales based, not necessarily sales training, but a lot is pitching based, like pitching a company, working on an elevator pitch, writing business plans. So really heavily in sales without it being like sales training specifically.
Okay, so what was your introduction to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I chose entrepreneurship as my option. I went to junior college first. So I was the first in my family to like go to college, graduate, all that good stuff. Where I grew up in Visalia, not a lot of people went to college. There's not a 4-year university there in Visalia. And, I grew up with a very diverse set of friends. Some that I'm very close to this day that went to Fresno State, some that I grew up with that, are unfortunately dead now, like one of my closest friends. So again, very diverse exposure of different types of people, but not necessarily, no one in my family went to college. So I went to COS, which is the junior college there, thinking like it's sort of a pipe dream. I don't know anyone really other than 2 friends I went to high school with that went to Fresno State before I did, that I would do that. I chose business there because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I have a little bit of a fear of commitment in my life. It's kind of something that's traveled and followed me. And choosing something very specific, like becoming a doctor or, an accountant, something where it's a very finite career path scared me if I tried that and didn't like it. So I chose business as it was general enough. And then when I got to Fresno State, I had to choose a specific option. And I really chose entrepreneurship, as is always an aspiration of mine to start a business ever since like kind of a young kid. I mean, realistically, like it was kind of bad role models, but I watched stuff like Scarface or these movies with like these really grandiose characters that started these empires, even though they weren't through legitimate means. It was very like inspiring as a kid. So I really wanted to start a business. So I chose entrepreneurship as the major. However, the first year I didn't have a business in mind. So I didn't gravitate towards the studies as much as some of my other students and colleagues did, because they went into it with like a business idea. So all the things they learned from the class was really relevant to them. I didn't come up with the idea for like my first business towards my senior year in college. And that's when I was able to. So it was actually a website where guys who don't know how to talk to girls could pay for dating advice from a live coach.
Really?
Yeah, it was called Social.
Were you the coach?
No, I wasn't the coach. The idea would be, I'm a bit older, so this is dating back to 2011, when I was a senior and in college. And then back then there wasn't a lot of video chat, was still in its early stages, like Skype. Google Hangouts just came out before, and there wasn't really a way to monetize off video chat back then. So I initially started the ideas of a guy didn't know how to talk to opposite sex. He could pay for a video consultation with a dating coach online, preferably, a beautiful woman that could teach him how to date, and receive this consultation. After I graduated, I actually competed in a startup competition called Happy Hack in San Francisco, and I won a cash award from PayPal.
That's awesome.
Because PayPal was looking for the next eBay. They were looking for a marketplace that could use their payment processing to facilitate a lot of money. So they liked ours because by then the idea kind of broadened a little bit to not just dating advice, but a place where you could get career advice. So you could pay to speak to maybe a managing director who can give you like advice on how to do an interview, or a dancing coach, whatever it would be able to pay for a video chat with someone with a certain expertise. So I kind of expanded the idea outside of just video live dating advice to kind of video coaching in a variety of fields. And I was actually able to raise a little bit of money for that company, about $75,000.
Awesome.
I was about 21 at the time, maybe 20. And that was kind of my initial raising money and doing the whole startup thing. Yeah. The company eventually failed as didn't really know how to build software back then. I don't know how to build it today. I'm not an engineer, but I'm trained in product management. So I understand like how to manage a team of engineers to build software. There's a concept called an MVP, minimal viable product, where the idea is you build the skateboard before you build the car. Because if you build the chassis can't do anything. It's just there. It doesn't provide the utility that the car does, which is transportation. The skateboard does it, but just at 1/60th of the speed. So I built a chassis with that $75,000, and there was nothing we could really go to market with. 21, ran out of money, and took a job. And then that was kind of the start of my career on more software as a service, which the company I worked for sold to businesses, versus that first idea was a general consumer app, you would have your buddy use, versus kind of my career. The last decade has been more around selling software to businesses now.
What was that experience like for you being 21? You had just did your first capital raised money for that business, put a lot of time and effort into that, and it didn't work out. Like, wow, what was that experience for you, experiencing failure? Was that your first time experiencing failure, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it was my first failure, and that was my first kind of real breakup in anything in life. Like relationship-wise, I think, the first real love, whether it's the business or an actual relationship, you feel like if this person or this concept doesn't work, that this was your best shot. There's nothing else after. So there was a bit of kind of that as it was crashing down. Like, I've spent some time, realistically it was only 2 years on it, which goes by fast in entrepreneurship compared to how long I've been working on the business now. But it felt like it was kind of my big ticket. It was the thing that was going to make me a millionaire. And when it didn't work out, it was very hard for me. Versus as I got older, I've had a lot of failed opportunities and had some good ones as well. So it's a lot easier to take those hits on the chin. But back then it was pretty hard. It felt like it was the one, and like you missed your window of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've had some experiences like that, and not so much in business, but in sports. a lot where we lose a game or we're close and things don't go our way. But as I'm continuing to build out different businesses and different habits and routines for myself, I'm running into this problem where I'm seeing where I have to reward myself for every little win that I'm doing. So that way I can remind myself that it's a journey and it's a process, and that each day comes with new wins and different problems as well. So I think learning that early on as an entrepreneur has definitely benefited me as I continue to grow and develop out different businesses. But let's talk about your current role right now. Can you explain to us, you just had a company acquired?
Yeah, so I started a company in 2019 with a gentleman that is really close to me. His name's Jamin Brazil. He's kind of I would say a local, he should be more famous locally in terms of like what he's done, because he's created the biggest technology company between SF and LA. It was called Decipher. It was eventually bought out, and it's been bought out multiple times. I think the last time was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So very big software company. I actually started working for him out of college at Fresno State, actually right before I graduated, as I was still kind of working on the other concept as it was kind of failing. And when I started working there, they were in the Gottschalk's headquarters on, I guess, like Audubon and Friant, right there across from Woodward. And it was about 200 people, like tech workers in Fresno, all working out of there. And that's where I got a lot of my exposure to software as a service. Was selling. This was market research software that was sold. It competed with companies like SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics, if you guys are familiar with those. So I worked there for a number of years.
This is here in Fresno.
Yeah, this is here
all
in Fresno.
going on in Fresno.
This was all going on here in Fresno. The company has been acquired multiple times. I don't think they have as big office here. Now it's like global. But yeah, so this company was based here in Fresno, and I started working there out of college. I worked there for 4 years. And he was someone that I always looked up to while working there. I didn't have a close relationship with him because I was kind of on the bottom of the totem pole there. I was, 21, and there was managers and managers above between me and him. But he's someone that I had a lot of admiration for, and even his co-founder as well I was pretty close to.
How'd you find out about him?
It was actually, ironically, the mayor at the time told me about it. So Ashley Sweargian at Fresno State in the entrepreneurship program, we did a field trip to City Hall. And then she was telling us that, hey, there's a big tech company in town that's hiring. If anyone wants a job, just say that I referred you. So I applied that day, and then that's how I got it. Was
it that easy?
I mean, I lucked out because I already started my first company.
Okay, yeah.
And I did research. I did surveys on like Google Forms back then. So there wasn't like a ton of students coming out of Fresno State with actual market research experience. So, I mean, It was kind of relatively easy, but it was also almost minimum wage job at the time. So it wasn't, again, this was at the kind of the bottom of the totem pole there. And I worked my way up there during 5 years, got into sales, customer success, different things, client facing. And I actually met my co-founders. Sorry, this is like a long-winded answer to get to kind of where I am today. Figured it's the best way to do it. Is I met my co-founders of my previous company there at Decipher. There were 2 engineers. One day they came up to me and they're like, hey, Eric, we like building things, but we're engineers. Sometimes we build something, we get bored and we'll just throw it away. But I'm building something that I think can make some money. And we'd like to partner with you because we heard you started this company, Socialwise, that I talked about earlier. So I worked with them. Apologies if that's me.
Yeah, that's all right. Keep going.
Okay. So I worked with them for a number of years on some side projects. Until in 2015, we actually came up with the concept of benchmark intelligence, which we were able to put in our 2 weeks notice in. My one co-founder had to put in the date earlier than I did. And he did it to our boss. And then he's like, hey, I'm putting my 2 weeks in. I'm going to start a company with some other employees here. They'll come to you tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you who they are. And they already knew who it was that we were like starting this company. So we left, and is that... Yep. I'll just turn off Do Not Disturb, or is that
me? Go ahead.
Yeah, my bad.
It might be important too if you want to check that. That's all right as well.
Let's turn it off. Okay. Make it easy. All right. My bad. I'll pick up where I left off. Yeah, so in 2015, I started a company called Benchmark Intelligence, and that's a whole story in itself. I could come back to that. Raised over $600,000 venture capital. Lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, Boulder, Colorado to start it. And it was customer feedback software for restaurants. The whole time I'm starting this, I continued to have a relationship with the gentleman, Jamin, earlier because he was a mentor of mine. So like, hey, I'm going through this problem.
Was this
How
your
should I
first
fix
mentor?
this? Yeah, he's my first real mentor. Take that back. The person, I said we raised $600,000. 500 of it came here locally from my first teacher.
Really?
Yeah, so my first teacher, an entrepreneurship major, he eventually gave me $500,000.
Is it possible a name drop or is that?
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. When I say my teacher, it's his venture capital fund with limited partners. Okay. So it's San Joaquin Capital is the name of it.
That's
and
awesome.
Eric Nazelrode, he's still a business teacher, I think, at Reedley College.
Awesome.
He was at Fresno State.
That's great that local people are providing resources for local businesses and local entrepreneurs, especially starting up. Like, I know how hard it is to raise money, but the fact that you could source that locally, that says a lot about you as an entrepreneur as well. So congratulations in doing that. It's very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would say really I've had two mentors in my entrepreneurship journey. He was the first one who invested in me in 2016 was when he invested that, along with his partner, Tim, who ran a company here called Applos. So they were actually software entrepreneurs. Yep. So they've had some investors locally. So there is a number of like these tech startups here that have had venture capital, and they've actually sold their company for a lot of money, and they did well. But they were my first mentor. And then Jamin they had their mentor, and he's someone that I would keep in contact with while I was doing Benchmark. And then one day in 2019, he told me he was starting a new startup, and he had a bunch of like non-competes that eventually expired, and then he could do something in the market research space because by this point, like he was CEO of one of the biggest companies in the space. It was worth, valued at I think like $600-700 million at the time. And he's like, I'm gonna start a new company. I'd like for you to be a co-founder and help me with sales. And at the time, I was still CEO of my previous company. But it was kind of flat. Like I think I got to this place in life where we raised some money, we tried to really grow it, and we just couldn't for whatever reason. And I was able to maintain revenue with not doing very much. So during that time, I started exploring, wrote the book, opened a gym, etc. But I think it was more kind of almost out of boredom because I didn't have what it took to take my company to the next level. And I didn't want to just stay in the stagnant place. So I left my company I started. And then I joined him as a co-founder. And when I joined him, for the first few months, couldn't really pay myself. And then we just kind of worked together and then eventually grew the company through the last 3 years. And then we sold it to Vox Pop Me, which is a large company in the market research space, in October last year. And it was a transaction with shares. So our ownership was then rolled up into this parent company. And with that, I became the VP of sales at this company. So, this is kind of what I'm doing now. It's very interesting for me. I really enjoy it. It was a little nerve-wracking because technically I'm not an entrepreneur anymore. I have autonomy as of one Amazon vice president, more now of a tech executive, which is different as the last 7 years of my career has been solely entrepreneurship as a CEO or COO. So now, working in a company is a little different. It's exciting, a lot more resources, better pay, things like that. But it is taking a little bit of get used to with not being able to do everything that you necessarily want or put your hands in all the pots because you have different stakeholders that are in charge of those things.
Do you think it's making you a better entrepreneur that you're able to practice things like entrepreneurialism and put practical ideas in place in such a high role as a tech exec?
Yeah, definitely. Ever since 2019, I really kind of had a switch and try and do everything I can to learn. I think when I raised the $500,000 in 2016, I was CEO of a startup. I was one of the like 3 companies in Fresno that had venture capital. I got a big head because of this. I was mid-20s, and thought, I just thought, okay, we got this money. Like that was, for some reason, I thought that was the finish line. That was just the starting line. It's like what you take with that money, how you deploy the capital and grow it. We eventually ran out of that money. The company still exists to this day, so it never died. It's actually cash flows to this day, 7 years. It's just software that runs itself. But the main point being is that I thought as a CEO I would get to a certain point, and I didn't. And in 2019, when Jamin asked me to become a co-founder, I knew I wasn't joining as CEO, as he already was. So at that point, it's like, okay, time to take the ego aside of this title of CEO, which doesn't mean much when it's a 5-person company. Let's remove that. And let's just use this as an opportunity to learn. This is someone that you've looked up to, for the last 10 years. Obviously, he's had a successful run and knows how to grow a business. So when you join this company as a co-founder, use this as an opportunity to grow and learn.
Absolutely.
And I come in with the same ideology now with Vox Pop Me, as it's a very dominant player in this huge industry. As okay, now let's focus a little bit more on your sales chops, learning sales management, and just the different pieces that come along with that versus entrepreneurship. It's sales, I think, always most important, but you're doing other stuff, product management, marketing, accounting, whatever it may be. So now it's kind of going through another transition part of my life where I am just accepting that I will, that there's other people that I have to report to and listen to, but it's another opportunity to learn from people that have been there before.
Absolutely. And I too have a sales role at a tech company as well. I'm head of sales for a tech startup founded by a Fresno State graduate as well, Conrad Kimball. He was in the entrepreneurship mentorship program at Fresno State and just saw everything that I was doing in the housing industry. And we work with accessory dwelling units or additional dwelling units, building affordable housing throughout California. So for me, transitioning my role as an entrepreneur or someone who still is running multiple businesses here locally, but still having to be in the Bay Area, I spent about 8 months last year back and forth between Palo Alto and Fresno, but just I really did that to challenge myself to be a better entrepreneur so I can go and teach myself to how to work well with others, how to build out and develop large sales teams similar to what you're doing. And we were able to grow that company to I believe, $4 million in revenue last year.
Wow.
So major accomplishments for us, and we're continuing to grow and build that out. But I'm really learning a lot, placing myself as an entrepreneur back in an environment where I have to work with others.
Yeah.
And it can test you in ways that people don't really understand. But are you still working on ideas or developing out other entrepreneurial things as well?
For the time being, no. There is, when you go through most acquisitions, there is kind of a period that you'll be working for the company, certain contractual obligations. So yeah, right now my main focus is Vox Pop Me. I know this is not the end of the entrepreneurial bug. Kind of my goal is to help this company make as much money as I can and make as much as I can in the process. But there will be a time again where it's time to wear the CEO, COO title and start something. I just know it's where my heart's at. But this is helping me prepare for that, because now I'm kind of at the vice president level of a company that, has raised over 10 million in capital. I don't know, I forget exactly how much, but they're a company that's been around for 7 years. We work with some of the biggest consumer insights companies, or biggest teams in the world at big brands. Like I work with Pepsi, Nationwide. I can't think of a bunch. There's a bunch. Experian, just had a call with them. A bunch of these big household names that you're used to. They help use our software to collect feedback from their customers so they can make their products better.
That's awesome. And so this is video surveys, right? Or
yes.
Surveys. Now, how would a small business or someone who's running a small business be able to integrate a system like that or a software like that into their business, and how would that benefit their clients as well?
Yeah. So with especially on the small side of the, small businesses, you can be closer to the customers. A big piece of why the video survey platform and other technology we have is so important is it allows executives at these big Fortune 500 companies to really empathize with the customers. When you're a CEO of such a large billion-dollar company, you become very disconnected from the end consumers. And typical quantitative surveys of ranking 1 to 5 how you like something is very binary and black and white in nature. So you can see 67% of people like this product and 33% don't. But having qualitative insights from actual video allows you to see the stories that people tell. Lazy Boy is one of our customers, and people would do these video surveys talking about how the Lazy Boy makes them think of their dad every day when he come home after work, sit in the Lazy Boy. And for them, it's this big grandiose moment they made in life when they buy their first house and they're able to get their own Lazy Boy.
Absolutely.
These are these videos that we capture that the execs at these companies are able to see and really see the impact that their products have. Now, scaling that down to the small businesses, I think there's easy ways to do that with outside of just our platform, which tends to be more of an enterprise pricing model. Just full transparency, most small businesses couldn't afford that, but there's a lot of great free research tools out there that are tailored to the SMBs that I think are a great fit.
Can you name a few?
SurveyMonkey still is entry level. Using Google Forms. Google Forms is free if you have like the Google Sheet or Google Suite. You can just use Google Forms to collect feedback. Typeform is another good like survey customer feedback platform. Those are some that I have top of mind. But if you just type in like SMB customer feedback, there will be a lot of free to really cheap products that you can pay $50 a month to collect feedback. Versus ours, I mean, we just typically target the Fortune 1000. That's kind of our target market.
Absolutely. Now, switching to another role, you've written a few articles that have helped young entrepreneurs, young people. One that was titled, "Why is Work-Life Balance Overrated in Your 20s?" Can we dive into that a little bit, and can you explain why work-life balance is overrated in your 20s?
Yeah, so that article, you wrote that a while back, and I still hold the same sentiment. It's interesting as a writer. I started writing about 10 years ago. So it's funny going back to some of it. You see, it's like, like if you saw anything from 10 years ago, it'd be like, shit, that's cringe, or I don't agree with that anymore. I would say, however, I'm pretty proud that, 75% of the articles I wrote, I still believe in most of the ideology, not all of it. But that one I still do. And I think it's relative to each person. I genuinely enjoy working. It's what I find pleasure in doing. It just makes time goes by fast when I'm working. It may not be for everyone. Some people will find their balance in life and what brings them joy. I think there's nothing wrong with being a workaholic. There's sometimes a negative connotation, or you should take breaks, or you should do this. I get anxiety when I take vacations for too long. I love workcation. So, I'm able to travel all around the U.S. For sales, and I'm able to visit these different places. And then, I've been in New York, Chicago, I'm going to Charlotte to speak at a conference next month. But I really enjoy those times because, again, I'm able to blend the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
See different parts of the U.S. and work. So for me, work-life balance is overrated for people that really want to get ahead, especially because when you get into the 30s, and I'm 33, so I can tell you that it doesn't get much easier than your 20s. You're smarter and you have more money, but I mean, there's problems. You're still figuring stuff out. They're harder problems to figure out. So getting ahead in your 20s will just set you up in your 30s and beyond to do that. So that's just what I mean by work balance is overrated. If you really enjoy working, don't worry about achieving a work-life balance. If you started a family younger in your 20s, then it's probably more important to you to be able to maintain that. But it's more around the idea. Most people in their 20s are not married and do not have children yet. If you don't have those things, like just don't waste time playing video games or doing other stuff. Just add more work into your life.
Absolutely. And people, I always get all the time, people are like, why are you working so much? Why are you doing so much? But what they don't know is that I'm preparing for a much better future. Like what I'm building now is setting me up for retirement, something that most people may never really get to do is fully retire. And here I am starting businesses, planning to retire, hopefully, in my 40s, maybe early 50s, But I too enjoy work, enjoy the grind. What keeps you inspired, or what keeps you working so hard? There's got to be a ton of motivation behind how hard you work.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of it's just natural, kind of going back to just enjoy. I mean, it's like an athlete, like they play because they enjoy the sport. And then outside of that, like external factors I try to use, positive reinforcement. Growing up, especially when I was starting like the entrepreneurial major, I was a skater. So back then there was a popular company called DGK. It stands for Dirty Ghetto Kids. They had a shirt that used to say, "I love haters." And I used to think that like you grind to shut up the haters. And as I got older, I realized you actually do it to support the people or validate your supporters versus like, make the haters feel dumb about never believing. So I kind of filter out that noise, and be honest, I don't necessarily get a lot of it. Like the community tends to be very supportive, but I tend to think like the chip on your shoulder is good every once in a while, is that extra motivation, but trying to focus on improving the life of you and your family, people close to you, I think that is much better. I was able to hire, recently bring on one of my best friends as account executive. And he was able to make more money now, and he's leaving Yelp. So like he's leaving a very big company to come here, and we're still able to provide, improvement
That's
in
awesome.
his life. So it's just those things that really motivate me to grind harder.
That's awesome. I would say right now, at the stage of my life, I just acquired a new business, just sold one. I'm really motivated right now, not by fear. I guess because I grew up in a rough environment, that I'm always, I guess, motivated by fear. Like damn, I could go back to there. If all of this shit fails, I'm going back there, or it could be a possibility. But I would say I'm the same way. Like, I'm driven by the competition, that there is somebody out there, man or woman, that may have gotten up a little bit earlier than me and gotten to their day and is just owning the day harder than I am. But that's what's really drives me, is finding a community and like-minded people who are getting after it, because just talking to you, it's making me even want to go do more things and find ways to compete with you and maybe drive your business in some ways. That's awesome.
I'm glad to hear that, man.
You also wrote an article titled 8 Tricks for Being the Most Confident Guy in the Room, or the most confident guy you know. So I think that I'm a very confident guy, and I know that I can give that off to other men or in crowds. What are some tips that you may have for young men that can boost their confidence?
Yeah, it's great. Thinking back to that, like, when I think of confidence, people exemplify confidence in a different variety of different ways. Like, me and my friends, we're all in sales, and we're all different archetypes in terms of like our personality, the way we sell. I don't want to say I'm an introvert, but I tend to be more on the quieter scale, versus I have friends that could work a room the second they walk in. And because of that, I hired him before. He worked for me previously because I know he was really good at the front end of sales, like getting the lead generation, and I have more of the long tail, like hold on to it. I give that example to say that neither of us confidences are less or more than each other. We just display it in different ways. Mine tends to be I listen more than I speak. I try to use my words carefully, as many times when people are nervous, they tend to ramble or just speak on. So because of that, I let people feel appreciated, that they're heard, that, again, listen more than I speak, and not necessarily be over aggressive or the loudest person in the room. They say you should fear the quietest person in the room. I don't think everything's that black and white. I don't think that's true. I think sometimes it's the loudest person that, can kick your ass, and he's just that aggressive type of person. So confidence is displayed in different ways. I kind of wrote about how it is relevant to me. I think the most part, though, is just believing in yourself. So the difference of someone who's loud is if they're using it to make themselves feel better, or if that's just how they're showing their personality, is by being more animated and loud. If it's the latter, then that's true confidence. If they're trying to overcompensate for something, then that's not the way to be confident. Maybe it's to be quieter, listen more, figure out which approach works for you. So I still definitely believe in the article, but I don't think it is as black and white as I wrote it, as I've learned, because I know a lot of confident, hyper-competitive people in the entrepreneurship and sales industry, and each one's different, and the way they approach confidence is a little different. So absolutely. I don't think it is binary as I used to think it is.
Absolutely. When just speaking on confidence, and for someone like who is a young adult, are there ways that they can recognize their communication styles? Like, maybe they want to improve on their communication styles to be better in relationships, or do better at a job, or just communicate efficiently. How do you recognize yours and learn how you communicated to display that in your aspects of life?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I kind of learned early on from a sales manager, going back to like the confidence thing. He said, when you're doing a demo or sales pitch, be Lady Gaga. And I was like, can you elaborate? And he says, when she's on the stage, she's flamboyant, she's loud, she's this thing. And then when she goes home, she's either that person or she's not. But it doesn't matter. Some people are always Lady Gaga. They're the same person they're on stage when they get home. For me, it's a little bit of a switch. It's game time. I turn it on to be slightly different, but still kind of true to who I am, my North Star, my personality. But it's just the slightly more confident or extroverted version. And then, so mine is more around the kind of just solutions-based selling, really focusing on hearing their pain points so that I can. Some people are really into relationship, so they're going to buy from you because they don't care what you're selling. They just really enjoy you as a person. I've managed different salespeople, and they all have these different archetypes and different communication skills. Some are just super aggressive, and it works because they get the deal done. They just continue to go. And again, none of these are right or wrong answers. I think it's just kind of finding out what communication style works best with your personality, which one feels most true to you. So even though I gave a Lady Gaga example, you don't want to feel like you're wearing a mask the whole time you're communicating. It's okay to be a little bit more adding more theatrics to the way you communicate, but it shouldn't be a 180 to who you are. So just kind of figure out who you are, what is kind of the best communication approach to connect with individuals, and just sticking true to that.
Absolutely. That was good. You also wrote a book, author of Shoot Your Shot, Dating in the Era of Sliding in the DMs. I think this is still huge and relevant for where we're at, in society as young adults right now. There's a lot of people single, a lot of people looking for relationships or better relationships. Can you talk a little bit about your book and some of the advice that you have for dating in the era of social media?
Yeah, so I wrote the book I think 2019, before the pandemic. I was 29. It was something I wanted to do before I got into my 30s, because I wouldn't write another dating book again, just because I wanted to kind of leave that in my 20s and focus more on like business content. But one of the main reasons I wrote it, the catalyst of me writing it was actually I was kind of going through something with my previous company, dealing with like a lawsuit thing and etc. And I wanted to take a month off, and I didn't have money to travel at the time, so couldn't take the month off to travel. Didn't want to start a new business because I had to still run the current one I was in. So I was like, what can I do in a month that is productive, will bring joy, and something that'll help? So I decided, okay, I'm gonna write a book. And I really wanted to do business, but however, I wrote a lot of dating articles in my early 20s. So it's like, let's just do dating articles, completely subjective. No one's gonna like look up the credentials or validate certain things. Even with that, I went to it with a very quantitative mind frame, as I'm a researcher, so I used like a lot of stats and looking up third-party articles, etc. But the reason I wrote it, and specifically that topic, was I've been kind of forever single through my 20s. I'm in a relationship now, but I've just always enjoyed being single. And I had a lot of friends who in college or high school, they met the love of their lives, they got married, and then in their late 20s, early 30s, they all became single. Their wives went through this period, well, maybe that's not the man I want to live with the rest of my life. All 4 of them were actually left by their wives, so it wasn't like by choice. And then dating was a lot different compared to the 8 years ago before, when Tinder wasn't around, Instagram wasn't around, etc. So I would kind of put them through like this little boot camp, not because I'm a dating coach by any means, but because I was one of their best friends, and obviously I was kind of single, so I kind of saw how the game changed. So I just really wrote about that experience. A lot of it was anecdotal, just talking about how I helped my friends. A lot of it also was kind of research based off other people who did studies, as I just like including data into whatever I can, whether it's a book, a sales pitch. I think numbers talk.
What were some of the numbers?
Just the numbers
that you can remember.
Yeah, I mean, some of it was just like the history. Like, I think Tinder was so interesting because before Tinder came around, Match.com and eHarmony were the 2 biggest players in the space. I think the stat was 82% of their user base was over the age of 30. It makes sense because back then the way it was targeted was around finding your soulmate. And there's also a friction of a high price point, about $50 a month. So when Tinder came out, it changed the game in that it was agnostic in why you meet someone, whether it's a hookup, your future wife, a date, etc. It became synonymous with hookup culture because of this agnosticness, in that it's not tied to finding a soulmate. Although, my brother, I actually don't know if my brother met his baby mama from Tinder. I want to say he did. Or he reconnected.
I know plenty of people.
Yeah, but yes, like a lot of people. I know friends that have got married from Tinder, so don't need me to throw my brother under the bus on that one if he didn't. But the point being, Tinder, whether it's used for casualness or something serious, it is. So because of that, it changed the dynamic of why people got on. Now it became more socially acceptable for people in their 20s and younger to get on, etc. And then also stats about like statistically front-facing. I mean, the book honestly is just a common sense. It's just like normal stuff. If you build a profile, the first photo of you should be like straight on. Like portrait style photos are like 67% more likely to get swiped on versus if you have like an abstract photo or far away is your first one. They want to see a smile. Just different stuff like A/B testing different profiles, like different copy. just like you would a marketing campaign. Like you test the copy. When you run a marketing campaign, you run it with different stimuli, different the copy, the pitch, etc. All of that was different stuff that has been kind of tested, as well as like A/B tests that I did when I was single on it. So that is kind of the data behind the book. That's just some things I can think of off the top, but there's quite a bit actually thoughts put into the book.
Is there, from your research, is there a best app for people in their 20s, for young adults?
I would say still Tinder. I mean, before I met my girlfriend on Tinder. We've been together a little less than 2 years. Hinge was pretty nice to me before I became single, before I became in a relationship, sorry. And then Bumble as well. I mean, I haven't really kept up with the dating scene since then, since I'm not really writing content. So I don't know if there's any other players have came in the space that have made a big change. But yeah, no, I mean, just kind of those three are pretty safe bets.
I know a few of my friends have met their husbands or wives on Bumble or Hinge or something like that. But I don't think that when people realize when they're on their apps that they are out there, that they're marketing themselves. They want people to get a glimpse of who they are a little bit and want them to know more. And a lot of people, that may be their introduction to like marketing or having a better personal brand at the very least. Like especially if they want a high caliber man or a woman, you have to market yourself to get one.
100%.
And so I feel like people who are aware of their online brand are better daters. They go on better dates. They are hanging out with hotter chicks because they know how to brand themselves and market themselves efficiently. But moving on from some of the dating, or no, I gotta ask. You wrote an article, 10 types of girls you date in Fresno.
Oh God.
What? So I didn't see all 10, but can you walk us through what are a few types of girls that you can run into in Fresno? Because I know a lot of our audience are from the Central Valley, but I'm from Modesto. Yeah, you don't want to know about 10 types of girls you can find in Modesto.
Yeah,
I think Fresno's better. There's more people.
No, I definitely got flamed back then when I wrote that, just because I called out specific places. Back then, I forget what clubs I wrote about. Like before, obviously we have Standard and got Vixen.
Yep.
Lewis owned Lux in I think when I wrote the article it was HCK. Mm-hmm. So early 20s, Hermosa California Kitchen, Rome was a club. So like I would name specific like places like the Bottle Service Girl, and like the ones that work at those places, like the Tower Girl. So it's like semi kind of hipster person that hangs out in Tower. And I name bars that don't even exist, like because I reread it a few months ago. Don't even exist.
Oh, you rewrote it?
No, reread it. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at the places because I actually literally named places. And, no, you should. Like pass the torch on. Feel free to write that. But I wrote it semi satire. Like I kind of like for each section I talk a little bit of crap, but then I also like say like a positive thing. Like beauty school grad was another one. I met like a lot of beauty school grads when I was single during my time.
A lot of hairdressers.
Yeah, a lot of hairdressers. Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a fun article. It wasn't meant to be too serious. I think it was just back then, I don't know, just different. I think I wrote a lot for attention versus as I got older, I write now. I mean, most of the writing I do is for business, right? It's just for me. But I think a lot of like my articles I wrote back then, some were like, I would write personal stuff and be a little bit more therapeutic, but a lot, I think I was just looking for attention. Yeah. Just like full transparency. Like that's one of the articles, like I said about 25%.
How'd you grow out of that?
I think it was just more I think it goes back to the confidence thing. Really? Yeah, just more confidence in myself. I think some of it's just not necessarily needing to impress anyone, even with like the social media thing. Like, you know, I post things and I post quite often, but I'm not even really like some of the stuff I'm doing. I'm doing a lot better than I was 5 years ago, and I don't post about it.
I enjoy the content you post.
Thank you.
Sorry to cut you off, but I really wanted to explain to you why I enjoy the content you post, because I feel like you are working hard, working towards something. It gets me excited to see like another entrepreneur's hard work paying off. Like when you're taking your girl out on dates and you guys are posting about it. You know, like I love that shit. Like I'm inspired about that because that not only do I want to do that in my own life, but that's also something that I'm working for. So I can appreciate, you know, the content, even if it's just your basic life. You know, at least there's people out there doing it. So it's inspiring somebody.
I appreciate that, man. I just mean, I think I still very active but like I don't necessarily post every single highlight. I think back then, like any single thing I could use as a flex. I think it's also being social, not social, being single. Back then, like you want to market yourself as best as possible. So like any like, article that's written about you or any article you write, like it's a flex and you make it bigger than it is. As I get older, I feel like I tend to make things smaller than they are. Like selling the company. I posted something on it, but a bunch of articles came out and press releases, and I'm not necessarily resharing versus like when I raised venture capital the first time, like I think I posted something about it every day for a year. So it just tends to be a little bit more confident and less need to necessarily share everything in the world, but I still want to share enough for reasons, as you mentioned, as I just do like kind of showcasing that, especially if there's anyone out there that does find value in that or inspiration. So I try to keep it balanced.
Did you go through like a shift in your life to where your mindset shifted? Because I know like I'm in a time in my life where I was in the club popping bottles a lot, selling a few houses, going to Vegas, but I got tired of it. I started to feel like the people that were around me didn't really care about me or weren't really striving for the things that I really wanted deep down. Like, and it's not that I thought I was a bad person or that we were doing bad things, but I just knew that eventually I would want more. Like, so I haven't really been going out that much. I think I will eventually get back there, but did you have a similar shift in mindset?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, even with that, there's ebb and flows with it. It'll be points where, again, I think when I first raised that money and I was CEO, I thought like, I spent that money very dumb. I got very smart with my money over time. Part of the trap of being like a tech entrepreneur is the way most entrepreneurs make their money is when they sell their company. You have a liquidity event. So you pay yourself a salary until then, low six figures. Something nice, but you're never a millionaire. It's not like a real estate where there's heavy cash. Like you do a flip, you made 50K. One day you make 100 grand, you sell your company for 50 million. Now you're a millionaire overnight. It literally happens overnight. Mine didn't happen when I sold because again, it just pushes it out to when this company sells. But because that ideology, like I was like, well, the money I make from my salary is kind of pointless because I'm gonna sell it all one day and I'll become a millionaire then. So let's just spend it fun, like do whatever, bottle service, party, travel. And then as I got older, I was like, well, you're actually making enough salary. You can start buying property or reinvesting because you may never sell, you may never get that big break, but you're making enough now. You might as well utilize it and then so like a big part of it was a financial consideration of slowing down just to save money. So that I don't blow it on things like drinking or going out. And then obviously a big slowing down was getting in a relationship. But before that, the last 2 years I was single. I mean, I'd still date and meet women, but I wouldn't go out to the club to do it. It just felt it was not a good use of time. And I just try to stay more low key.
Absolutely. Now, switching gears a little, I want to talk about something that I know that you're passionate about. You founded a nonprofit here in Fresno, the Big Brother Boxing Gym. Can you talk about your experience as a nonprofit founder as well?
Yeah, so I started the gym with 3 co-founders. 2 of them, their names are the Cano brothers. Paul was a former professional boxer. Roman was a high-ranking amateur. We started as a for-profit gym. I think this was 2019. This was the time when I told you that was kind of my business was flat, so I was exploring stuff before HubUX. This is during that time where I wrote a book, started a boxing gym. So I started it with them. I actually did it off an Instagram post, ironically enough. So I was training at a gym. That gym closed down. I'm a big boxing person. I box, train. I don't fight, but I'm pretty good with my hands. So I did boxing, gym closed, and I went to one of the trainers like, hey, let's open a gym together, like a small one. We'll make it more like, this was a hardcore gym. Let's make it more like family friendly, train like fitness people, doctors, lawyers, one-on-one. And he was going to do it with me. And then he changed his mind at the last second. And we were going to rent something small, like $500 a month spot downtown, enough for 2 people training at a time. And then I still really wanted to do this boxing thing. So I posted Instagram story post, want to open a boxing gym. Does anyone want to open with me? LOL. And then someone replied and they're like, I would. So it was a guy named Paul. He owned a in-home fitness company here in Fresno. And he's like, yeah, I'm down to do it. I would want my brother to be like the head trainer. So I met him. They put me through a workout. So he's like, but I want you to do a workout with him, like to prove your stripes. Like, so just like come prepared. So I did the workout, gained his respect. And then we opened the gym as a for-profit company. And, within this first 6 months, we outgrew our space. So we moved into a larger facility downtown. And we're there for a number of years. And then we turned it into a nonprofit.
All off of Instagram posts.
Yeah, just all of Instagram posts. And the gym actually...
Shoot your shot.
we sadly had to shut the gym down in October because our lease expired. And we had another place, but they bailed. And those guys are like killing it with their other They have another boxing company which goes to schools, and I think they have over like 700 students right now. So, and they have like 15 trainers, so they're killing it. So at the gym as a whole, we actually shut down just because I'm running my business, they're running theirs. The entity still exists, and we've actually been redistributing those the revenue that we generated to sign up for year memberships for kids in other schools and etc. So the gym, the nonprofit is actually evaporating. However, we're able to raise a decent amount of money and actually utilize and deploy that capital back into the community. But for the time being, that's actually coming to a close. But it was pretty remarkable to see the impact that it has had on this community.
Yeah. How long have you been boxing for, and like what role has sports or having something like boxing play like in your entrepreneurial journey? I know I go to the gym daily. I'm constantly in the sauna. Working out is a big part of my life. Like, is boxing similar for you, and are you still doing that?
Yeah, so boxing is like a big part. Like, I got into combat sports in college. Kickboxing is what I started with. Did that. Did like this smoker fight, which is kind of like an amateur but exhibition match, and then I was gonna actually do a proper fight about the time it was MMA, so I was transitioned to MMA a week before I graduated college, and I just got really stressed with training for finals as well as that. I backed out of the fight, got too embarrassed to go to the gym, like go back to the gym, so I just quit. Like, and that was like 21 years old. Then I graduated college, etc. I got back into boxing on accident by just running one day. I lived downtown, I have a condo. I was running, and then a boxing guy yelled at me. He's like, "Hey, you're doing it wrong." It was this like tatted bulldog guy, former, now converted to like a pasture. And he like called me into the gym, and then he's like, "You should box." I didn't tell him I did kickboxing. So because I didn't know if he was going to like, if I told that he was going to start sparring me or something. So I just pretended I was a noob. He's like, "Oh man, you're like a natural at this." So I started training there. And ever since then, I've been training to some degree. I obviously don't get to train as much now that I don't have my own personal gym. Having a personal gym 2 blocks from my place was nice for 3 years. I still go to GB3 and work out. But yeah, boxing will always be a part of my life, and I think it will always be part of my fitness. I wanted to do an amateur fight like 2 years ago. I think that has kind of gone on the wayside because I have dislocated my shoulder from sparring before. So until I get surgery on that, I don't see me competing anytime soon. So it's probably just fun boxing and then like sparring with friends.
Absolutely. Moving forward a bit, because I know we have a bit more time here. You wrote an article, what you should know about life and money by the time you're 25. I'm 25 right now. I know a lot of our audience is probably around our age. What do you think is the best advice you have for somebody about life and money by the time that they turn 25?
Yeah. I remember when I wrote that article, I was literally going through a quarter life crisis. That was kind of the catalyst of the article. I think it was, that was right before I started the company Benchmark. I was starting it, but I hadn't worked full time. So I felt kind of like a fake entrepreneur because I was starting all these side projects and I'd post them on LinkedIn. And then my coworkers at the company I worked for were like, "Hey, Mr. CEO," or like, "Hey, this," because I studied school in entrepreneurship. And by the time I was 25, and I was only supposed to take a job per year. It ended up fast forward 4 years. And it was like, this is the year that I really like want to make a change, make a difference in my life. And I think towards the end of 25 is when I started Benchmark and left and moved to Colorado. So yeah, that was like a very pivotal part of my life and and I think the main thing I realized is like time, and it's something that holds even more true the older you get, like time and money. Time is finite. Like you only have so much of it, and money is in that you can have as much as abundance as you can make, but you might as well spend it. Like I was gonna buy my first house at 25. I didn't start buying properties till like 2 years ago. I saved a good amount of money working this job, and then I went through a breakup, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna use this $50K instead of a down payment. I'm gonna start this business. So I started the business, and I bet on myself. And
huge risk.
Yeah, I think it was just a big piece of that, just kind of quarter life crisis that I went through, and just a big piece. Everything I wrote in that article kind of drills down to just time is not finite. Like time goes quick. Like 25 went quick. You'll be at 35. I'm not 35 yet, but I'll be there soon. And then it's just, yeah, like you spend it freely, spend your time wisely and your money not as wisely, I guess.
What were some of the things you were experiencing or feeling during that quarter life crisis?
Nothing like, there wasn't like one big thing. I used a breakup as one of the reasons I started that company. But it really wasn't like, I was like super depressed. I started this company like to prove this person wrong. I think it's just as you get 25 is a reflective time. So you're like, if I'm 100, I'm a quarter of the way. Then you start doing due diligence of your life. Like, are you to your goal? I mean, anytime birthdays, New Year's are always good reflections. And I'm big believer in doing New Year's resolutions, even if it's just goal tracking.
Absolutely.
So I think there was nothing really specifically important about 25, as I think it's just a time most people reflect when they get to 25. It's just another milestone like 30, where you really start to see, okay, I'm a few years past college. Would my person in college be happy where he is right now, or should he do something different?
Absolutely. You see, 2023, I'm 25 currently. If you look behind us, I write down all my goals. I try to track everything diligently just so I know where I'm at. But I feel like even a lot doing this, sometimes I can come into the office in the morning, look at it, and still have feelings of getting overwhelmed. But I think it's a lot easier coming in, at least knowing that I also have things to do. It also gives me something to work forward to.
Yeah, I noticed that as soon as I walked in.
But what do you think, wrapping up, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you're facing in your role, business, or project right now? And how are you tackling that?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that always worries me, obviously, is the economy. As time goes, you're always so focused on things when you start out that you can control, and as you get further along in your career, you also worry about the things you can't control. Like the economy. I just bought another property we went on escrow last week, did the inspection yesterday. We'll be moving into that. But
Congratulations.
Thank you. Just, are we catching a falling knife? Like just all that stuff. I've made a lot of mistakes throughout my career. The company Benchmark that I talked about, it still exists to this day. In 2017, someone offered me $2 million to buy it. At the time, I owned about like 30-something%. You do the math, like it'd be a pretty good take home. Wouldn't be a millionaire off it, but like good on the way. Didn't do it. Thought, hey, this time next year, the company will be worth $4 million. It was worth a fraction of the $2 million by next year. Like you can really overvalue things in life, including yourself. Like not to be like the pessimistic person in the room. It's like people always think things will go up. That's not always the true. Hopefully it does if you work hard, but sometimes just conditions are outside of your control. That would be one example I learned that early on, was that $2 million was evaporated. It's still nice because I pay myself from it every year, so I'm getting that back technically over time. But it would have been nice to have that cash up front. But outside of that, it's just thinking about the economy. I mean, with my customers, we sell to Fortune 500, and we're trying to upsell contracts every year, worrying about them contracting or churning out. Just the ability to pay payroll, just all that stuff is, I would say, the biggest obstacle. And even people being a little paranoid, clients who have committed to larger contracts, and then their company experienced layoffs, and now they're not signing up, or they're doing something smaller. So I would say those are the biggest obstacles right now, are things that I can't necessarily control. The things that I can control, I'm pretty confident with my experience so far that I will navigate through them.
And what are the things that you're most looking forward to in 2023?
2023, this will be the first full year with Vox Pop Me, and with one of the nice things about this as VP is, for the first time ever in my career, I'm getting commission and carry. As a founder of a company, every time you close a deal, your imaginary net worth goes up. You don't get commission technically if you're a CEO or COO of a tech startup. But in this one, now there is this short-term benefit that's being nice, where, just last month, just one deal netted me 12 extra thousand. And it's like, okay, like that's like nice. Good money. On top of obviously good bases and other revenue coming from different sources. So we'll make more money this year than I've ever made. But I'll just see how it plays out. Am I going to feel less fulfilled at the end of it because I made more, but it's not necessarily my business that I'm doing it for. So I'm excited to see how 2023 is going to go.
Awesome.
Hopefully more traveling, maybe one more property. We'll kind of see how it goes, but just really excited about trying to grow Vox Pop Me, this company that, I became part of the family, grow it as much as I can over the next 12 months.
Absolutely. Man, Eric, well, we unpacked a lot this episode, and you gave some solid advice. Is there anything else that you'd like to add for our audience?
No, not really, man. It's a pleasure being here. It was a pleasure meeting you and having this conversation.
Absolutely.
So I'm super thankful for the invite. And now that I've met you in person, look forward to keeping in touch, man.
Absolutely. If listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the easiest way that they can contact you?
Just follow me on Instagram. It's Eric Santos, EricSantos.eth. Yeah, I'm a crypto believer. Started a failed NFT project this past year. Spent a lot of money on that. However, it still exists on OpenSea. Sappy Thespian. I don't know. That's a random plug. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, Eric, man, it was a pleasure meeting you. This is our first time meeting. It was an absolute pleasure. Learned a lot about you, and I'm looking forward to definitely developing our relationship. Thank you for being here, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for watching today's episode. Make sure you like this video so more people can see more of this content. Subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at The Realtor KD. And we'll see you again next time.